Remember those magical dishes that only appeared on Grandma's table, those recipes that seem to have vanished from modern kitchens. Today we're bringing back 25 forgotten treasures that every grandma knew by heart. From secret techniques to special ingredients, these are the foods we grew up with but rarely see anymore. Get ready for a journey back to Grandma's kitchen, where every dish told a story. Ground beef casserole. Every grandma had her signature ground beef casserole. It was like a warm hug on a plate. That magical combination of seasoned beef, tender vegetables, and her secret ingredient, usually a splash of Worcestershire sauce she'd hide in the back of the pantry. The real magic was that crispy topping, crushed crackers mixed with just a touch of butter, turning golden brown in the oven. Kids would race to the table when they smelled it baking, each hoping for that perfect corner piece with extra crunchy bits. Nowadays, you might find gourmet versions in restaurants, but nothing beats the way Grandma made it. She knew exactly how long to let those flavors meld together, making even Tuesday night dinner feel special. Bread pudding. Now, bread pudding wasn't just dessert. It was Grandma's specialty that had everyone begging for the recipe. She'd save the best bakery bread all week, knowing that slightly stale bread made the creamiest pudding. Her secret? Warming the milk with a vanilla bean that she'd carefully save and reuse, and always adding an extra egg for richness. The house would fill with the most amazing cinnamon vanilla aroma while it baked. The best part was watching her create that perfect custard. Not too wet, not too dry. Modern desserts might be fancier, but nothing compares to Grandma's bread pudding, especially when she'd serve it warm with her homemade vanilla sauce. Cornflake butter cookies. Remember those magical cornflake butter cookies that only Grandma knew how to make just right? Every time you opened her cookie jar, these golden beauties were right there, waiting to make your day special. They had this perfect balance, crispy from the cornflakes, buttery rich, and just sweet enough to make you reach for a second one. The real show was watching Grandma make them. She'd carefully crush the cornflakes by hand, never with a rolling pin saying it would make them too fine. That peanut butter had to be the creamy kind, and she'd always let you lick the spoon after mixing. Some grandmas added their secret touches. A dash of vanilla here, a sprinkle of extra sugar there. And those cookies never looked perfect like store-bought ones. Each one was unique, just like Grandma's love. She'd store them in that special tin with the flower pattern layered between wax paper she'd carefully save and reuse. Modern bakeries try to recreate these, but they're missing that essential ingredient, Grandma's touch. Bologna sandwiches. Every grandma had her own way of making even a simple bologna sandwich feel special. That's right, those perfectly round slices of bologna that she'd carefully score around the edges, her secret to keeping them flat while frying. And oh boy, did your eyes light up when she pulled out that cast iron skillet. She'd butter both sides of the white bread, had to be Wonder Bread according to Grandma, and fry that bologna until it had those perfect crispy edges. Some days she'd surprise you with her fancy version, melted cheese and a slice of tomato from her garden, always cut diagonally because it tastes better that way, she'd say with a wink. The real magic wasn't just in the sandwich, and it was how she'd serve it on those special Melmac plates, usually with a handful of rippled potato chips and her homemade pickle spears on the side. Modern delis try to recreate these artisanal fried bologna sandwiches, but they're missing Grandma's special touch. If you thought that was creative, wait until you hear about what Grandma could do with dried beef. Creamed, chipped beef on toast. Now here's a breakfast that would get everyone running to Grandma's kitchen. Her famous creamed chipped beef on toast. She'd start early, making that perfectly silky white sauce in her favorite double boiler, the one she'd had since her wedding day. Those paper-thin slices of dried beef would get special treatment. She'd carefully tear them into bite-sized pieces, saying the knife would make them tough. The sauce had to be just right, not too thick, not too thin. And she'd stir it with that old wooden spoon that somehow made everything taste better. Some mornings, she'd add a pinch of black pepper. Other days, a dash of Worcestershire sauce. But it was always served over toast she'd butter while it was still hot. Modern restaurants might call it vintage comfort food, but in Grandma's kitchen it was simply breakfast perfection. You know who else knew the secrets of breakfast? Those Italian grandmas with their amazing sauce-making skills. Grandma Maggio's spaghetti sauce. If there was one thing Grandma Maggio was famous for, it was her Sunday sauce. That huge pot would start simmering before anyone else in the neighborhood was even awake. The aroma would drift down the street, telling everyone it was going to be a special day. She'd stand there for hours, wooden spoon in hand, adding pinches of this and dashes of that, all without ever measuring. Those tomatoes had to be just right. She'd spend all summer canning them from her garden just for this sauce. And that one bay leaf, it had to be fished out before serving, or someone wouldn't get married that year. At least that's what she always said with a mysterious smile. The real secret wasn't in any ingredient. It was in the love and patience she stirred into every batch. She'd let you taste it throughout the day, teaching you how the flavor changed with each passing hour. Modern jarred sauces try to capture that magic, but they're missing Grandma's most important ingredient, time. When pumpkins were too pricey for holiday pies, Grandma had another trick up her sleeve: Hubbard squash custard pie. You haven't lived until you tasted Grandma's Hubbard squash custard pie. So this wasn't just any pie, it was her blue ribbon winner at the county fair 3 years running. That massive, ugly-looking squash would sit on her counter for days, like a precious treasure waiting to be transformed. She'd spend hours getting it just right. Cutting up that tough old squash was like an Olympic sport. But oh, the magic that happened next. She'd roast it until the whole house smelled like autumn, then blend it with her secret mix of spices. That cinnamon and nutmeg came from the same little tin she'd had for years, swearing the aged spices made it taste better. Every pie had her signature crimped edges, 18 perfect pleats, no more, no less, and that custard, silky smooth with just the right amount of jiggle. Modern bakeries try to replicate it with pumpkin, but they're missing out on Grandma's secret weapon: patience and precision. Now, if you want to talk about feeding an army with love, navy bean soup. Every grandma had her own version of navy bean soup, but it was the way she made it that turned something simple into something spectacular. That big soup pot, the one with the wobbly handle she refused to replace, would come out early in the morning. Those beans would soak overnight. She'd tell you it was to make them tender, but really, it was so she could get up early and surprise everyone with that heavenly aroma. Her secret weapon? That ham bone she'd saved from Sunday dinner, plus a bay leaf that she'd carefully fish out before serving. The real magic was in the waiting. She'd hum and putter around the kitchen all day, giving it an occasional stir with her favorite wooden spoon. Good soup is like good gossip, she'd say. It gets better as the day goes on. Modern restaurants might serve artisanal bean soup, but they're missing Grandma's secret ingredient: stories shared while it simmered. When store-bought bread wasn't worth the trip, baking powder biscuits. Nobody, and I mean nobody, made baking powder biscuits like Grandma. She'd be up before the sun, making those fluffy little clouds of heaven. Her hands would move like lightning, cutting cold butter into flour with 2 knives. No fancy pastry cutter needed in her kitchen. The secret was in her touch. She knew exactly how light to make the dough, never overworking it. That old aluminum biscuit cutter with the dented edge, it had to be that one. No substitutes allowed. She'd line them up in her blackened biscuit pan, edges touching so they climb up nice and tall. She'd say those biscuits would come out of the oven golden brown, steaming hot, and ready for a pat of butter to melt right in. Modern bakeries try to recreate them, but they're missing what made them special: Grandma's early morning magic and years of knowing just how the dough should feel. Government cheese dishes. Ever wonder why Grandma's mac and cheese had that perfect stretch? Her golden crusted casseroles weren't just dinner. They were masterpieces of melty perfection. She'd grate that cheese by hand, never using the food processor, saying good things take time. Those cheese sauces were smoother than silk, not a lump in sight. Her secret? Warming the milk first and adding the cheese slowly, always stirring in a figure-8 pattern with her favorite wooden spoon. She'd make everything from grilled cheese sandwiches that'd make you weak in the knees to cheese soup that could cure any cold. The real magic was in her special touches, like the breadcrumb topping she'd saved from her homemade bread, or that pinch of dry mustard she swore made everything taste better. Modern restaurants charge a fortune for artisanal mac and cheese, but they're missing what made Grandma's version special. That little wiggle of her wrist while stirring that no one could quite copy. And those cheese straws at Christmas? Pure magic. She'd pipe them out one by one, each perfectly ridged and golden. Patience makes perfect, she'd say, while we all waited impatiently to sneak one hot from the oven. Classic meatloaf. Grandma's meatloaf wasn't just dinner, it was an event. She'd start mixing early in the afternoon, everything done by hand in that big yellow mixing bowl with the hairline crack on the side. Each ingredient had its purpose, and she knew exactly how much of each to add without ever measuring. Those finely diced onions, carrots, and celery had to be just right. She called them her Holy Trinity. The real secret was in her special glaze, a mix of ketchup, brown sugar, and that mysterious splash from a bottle she kept hidden behind the baking soda. She'd score the top in a diamond pattern, saying it helped the glaze sink in better. When that loaf came out of the oven, all glossy and caramelized, the whole neighborhood knew what was cooking. The ends were always the most fought-over pieces, crispy, sweet, and perfect. And somehow, her meatloaf sandwiches the next day tasted even better than the first serving. Modern chefs try to elevate meatloaf with fancy ingredients, but they're missing Grandma's secret, knowing exactly how the mixture should feel between your fingers. Potato soup. Winter nights were made for Grandma's potato soup. Thick, creamy, and full of love. She'd start with those perfect potatoes she'd stored in the root cellar, each one hand-selected for soup making. The starchier, the better, she'd say, peeling each one with precision. Her technique was a thing of beauty, dicing potatoes into perfect, identical cubes so they'd cook evenly. The onions had to be cooked slow and low until they were practically transparent, lending their sweetness to the broth. She'd add just a touch of cream at the end, swirling it in with her special ladle, the one with the tiny chip that somehow made everything taste better. Some days, she'd top it with fresh chives from her windowsill garden, other days with crumbled bacon saved from breakfast. But the real masterpiece was her potato soup with dumplings, little clouds of dough that would float on top, soaking up all that creamy goodness. You haven't lived until you've had a bowl of Grandma's potato soup on a cold winter's night, served in those heavy ceramic bowls she'd had since forever. Now let me tell you about another of Grandma's specialties, cherry salad. Think you know salads? Well, Grandma's cherry salad was something else entirely. This wasn't your ordinary fruit salad. It was her signature showstopper at every family gathering. That crystal bowl she only used for special occasions would come out, signaling something magical was about to happen. Those bright red cherries would glisten like jewels nestled between perfectly diced pineapple and fluffy marshmallows. Her technique was legendary. Each marshmallow had to be cut with kitchen scissors she kept just for this purpose. The secret was in the dressing, a cloud-like mixture she'd whip up that made everything taste like heaven. She'd make it the night before, keeping it hidden in the back of the fridge where no one could sneak a taste. Every family had their own version, but Grandma's was special. Some said it was the way she folded everything together. Others swore it was the sprinkle of something secret she'd add when no one was looking. These days, you might find fancy fruit salads at high-end buffets, but nothing comes close to Grandma's cherry creation. Liver and onions. Now here's a dish that separated the food lovers from the pretenders, Grandma's liver and onions. The way she prepared it was pure kitchen alchemy. Those onions would cook down slow and sweet until they were practically melting, filling the house with an aroma that drew everyone to the kitchen. She had her special method, soaking the liver in milk first, a trick she learned from her own mother. Those onions weren't just any onions, they had to be sliced paper thin, each ring perfect and uniform. She'd cook them until they were golden brown, almost caramelized, before the liver ever touched the pan. The real magic was in the timing, not a second too long on each side. "Watch for the color change," she'd say, hovering over the skillet like a conductor leading an orchestra. And that gravy she'd make from the drippings? Pure heaven, especially over her homemade mashed potatoes. Modern chefs might call it rustic cuisine, but Grandma just called it dinner. Date nut bread. If happiness had a smell, it was Grandma's date nut bread, baking in the oven. That's right, that dark, mysterious loaf that somehow got better the longer you let it sit. She'd start by chopping those dates by hand. No food processor could match her perfect tiny cubes. Those nuts were always perfectly toasted. She'd do them in her cast iron skillet, shaking them until they were just right. The batter had to be mixed exactly 12 times, no more, no less. Overmix it, she'd warn, and you'll end up with brick instead of bread. The hardest part was waiting. That bread had to cool completely before slicing. Grandma's rules. But oh, when she finally cut into it, those perfect slices, spread with a little butter, made everything right with the world. She'd wrap the leftover loaf in wax paper, then foil, saying it needed to rest to reach its full potential. Speaking of Grandma's breakfast specialties, Meemaw's milk pudding. If heaven came in a bowl, it was Meemaw's milk pudding. This wasn't your box mix pudding. This was old-world magic in a mason jar. She'd start with whole milk, had to be full fat, no skimping on richness in her kitchen. That special double boiler, the one with the dented bottom, was her secret weapon. Every step was a ritual. The gentle stirring with her favorite long-handled spoon, the careful watch for that perfect thickness. "You can't rush perfection," she'd say, never taking her eyes off the pot. That vanilla bean she'd split and scrape was always saved, dried and tucked into her sugar canister for next time. The real show was watching her pour it into those special glass bowls, the ones with the delicate ripples around the edges. Each bowl got a light dusting of nutmeg, grated right there on the spot. Some days she'd add a sprinkle of cinnamon, other days a drizzle of maple syrup, but it was always topped with a dollop of fresh whipped cream. Now, if you thought pudding was something special, wait until you taste what she could do with a can of tuna. Tuna noodle casserole. Grandma's tuna noodle casserole wasn't just dinner, it was a work of art. Those egg noodles had to be cooked just right. Al dente, before that term, was even fancy. She'd drain them in that old colander with the bent handle, giving them a little shake to make them perfect. The sauce was her pride and joy, creamy and rich with tiny specks of black pepper that made it look extra special. She'd flake that tuna by hand, making sure every bite had the perfect balance. Those peas, they had to be added at just the right moment. Not too early, not too late. The crown jewel was that crispy topping. Crushed potato chips, but not just any chips. They had to be the rippled kind, crushed just so between wax paper. "It's all in the details," she'd say, arranging them in a perfect layer. And don't get me started on her secret ingredient, Irish soda bread. On mornings when Grandma made Irish soda bread, the whole house smelled like pure happiness. She'd have that special bowl ready, the heavy ceramic one with the chip on the rim that she swore made the bread taste better. Her hands would dance through the flour like she was performing magic. That cross she'd cut on top wasn't just for show. She had a whole story about blessing the bread and letting the fairies out. Each loaf had to rest on her special breadboard, the one her mother brought from the old country. The crust had to be just right. Not too hard, not too soft. When it came out of the oven, steaming and crusty, she'd wrap it in her special tea towel, the one with the shamrocks that only came out for bread-making days. Let it breathe, she'd say, swatting away eager hands, trying to sneak a warm slice. Now, speaking of free ingredients from nature's garden, dandelion salad. When spring rolled around, Grandma's yard wasn't just a garden. It was her personal salad bowl. She'd head out with her special wicker basket, the one she only used for foraging, and carefully pick those tender dandelion greens. Her eyes could spot the perfect leaves from yards away. Every leaf had to be cleaned 3 times, first in salt water, then in clear water, and finally in ice water to keep them crisp. Her hands would move like lightning, tearing each leaf into just the right size. No knife allowed. "It bruises the greens," she'd say with absolute certainty. The dressing was a work of art. Warm bacon drippings, a splash of apple cider vinegar, and a pinch of sugar. She'd toss it all together in that big wooden bowl, the one that was only for salads. Some days she'd add hard-boiled eggs or crispy bacon bits, making it a meal fit for royalty. From nature's bounty to carnival treats, caramel popcorn balls. Making popcorn balls with Grandma wasn't just cooking, it was a whole evening's entertainment. She'd pull out that heavy-bottomed pot that was just for popcorn, adding just 3 kernels to test the heat. When they popped, in went the rest, and the magic began. The caramel was her specialty, sugar and butter cooking until it turned exactly the right shade of amber. She'd test it in a glass of cold water, waiting for that perfect hard crack stage. Patience, she'd say, is what makes them special. The real fun was shaping them, everyone's hands buttered up, working quickly before the mixture cooled. She had a special knack for making them all the same size, while ours looked like lumpy meteorites. But she'd praise every single one, displaying them proudly on her special carnival glass plate. Now, if you thought that was sweet, rice pudding. Grandma's rice pudding wasn't just dessert, it was a ritual that turned simple ingredients into pure comfort. That special pot, the heavy-bottomed one she'd had since her wedding day, would come out, signaling something wonderful was about to happen. The rice had to be just right. She'd wash it 3 times, no more, no less. As it simmered, she'd add warm milk, bit by bit, stirring always in the same direction. "It's like taking care of a baby," she'd say, never leaving its side. Those plump raisins would go in at just the right moment, and the vanilla, always real, never artificial. That dusting of cinnamon on top made perfect little swirls. And if you were really lucky, she'd add a dollop of fresh whipped cream. Modern restaurants might serve artisanal rice pudding, but none can match the love stirred into Grandma's version. Speaking of Grandma's egg recipes, egg yolk cookies. Those egg yolk cookies were Grandma's way of turning leftovers into gold. Every time she made angel food cake, those leftover yolks would become tomorrow's treasures. She'd line them up like precious jewels in her special blue bowl, the one with the hairline crack she refused to replace. Her technique was mesmerizing, beating those yolks until they were pale as moonlight. The sugar had to be added 1 spoonful at a time, making the mixture almost satiny. That vanilla extract? The good stuff, hidden in the back of her cabinet for special occasions like this. Some days she'd add a hint of lemon zest, other days a whisper of almond extract. But the real magic was in her rolling technique. The dough had to be just the right thickness, and that special cookie cutter with the scalloped edges was the only one that would do. Each cookie got a gentle brush of egg wash and a sprinkle of sugar that would catch the light like morning frost. As these cookies baked, the whole house smelled like a piece of heaven. Ham hocks and beans. Grandma turned those humble ham hocks into pure magic. She'd start early in the morning, soaking those beautiful white beans in her special ceramic bowl. Never metal she'd worn, it changes the taste. Those ham hocks would get a special treatment too, seared just right to lock in all that smoky goodness. Her seasoning was an art form, a bay leaf that had to come from the special jar in the back of her cupboard. Peppercorns she'd crack by hand, and that secret blend of herbs she'd never fully reveal. Some things, she'd say with a wink, have to stay in the family. The real show was the slow simmer, 6 hours minimum, with her checking every hour like a nurse with a patient. She'd adjust the heat, add a little water, give it a gentle stir with her lucky wooden spoon. By dinner time, those beans were creamy as silk, and that ham would fall right off the bone. Every bowl got a special touch, a drizzle of her pepper vinegar, which sat on her counter in a bottle with peppers from her own garden. Peanut brittle. Making peanut brittle with Grandma was like watching a scientist at work. She'd only make it on days when the humidity was just right. She could tell by how her hair curled that heavy copper pot, passed down from her mother, would come out, getting polished until it shone like a new penny. The sugar and corn syrup had to be stirred in a specific pattern. Always clockwise, never counterclockwise. Those raw peanuts would get added at exactly the right moment, not a second too soon or too late. The baking soda was her magic powder, making the brittle light and airy instead of tooth-breaking hard. You had to move fast when it was ready, pouring it out onto those buttered cookie sheets she'd kept cool in the fridge. She'd tilt and turn the pan like an artist, getting that brittle just the right thickness. The cooling process was just as crucial. No fan, no open windows, just patience. Breaking it apart was a family tradition. Everyone gathered around, watching her tap it just right with her special silver hammer, creating pieces that looked like stained glass. Victory garden vegetables. Nothing made Grandma prouder than her victory garden. It wasn't just a garden, it was her outdoor kitchen. She could tell exactly when to plant by feeling the soil between her fingers. No fancy gardening tools needed. Those tomato plants grew tall as trees, trained up old wooden stakes she'd saved year after year. Every vegetable had its special spot. Tall plants in the back, leafy greens in the shade of the climbing beans. She knew exactly which flowers to plant between the rows to keep the bugs away, marigolds near the tomatoes, nasturtiums by the cucumbers. That garden wasn't just about growing food, it was about growing memories. The real magic happened at harvest time. She'd send us kids out with her special gathering basket, the one with the loose handle she refused to fix because it was perfectly broken in. Those sun-warmed tomatoes, crisp cucumbers, and tender green beans would become tomorrow's dinner, or next winter's canned treasures. Modern folks might call it organic gardening, but Grandma just called it common sense. These days, people pay premium prices for what she grew right in her backyard, with nothing but love and knowledge passed down through generations. Isn't it amazing how Grandma could turn simple ingredients into unforgettable meals? These 25 forgotten foods weren't just dishes, they were pure kitchen magic that brought families together. While some of these classics have disappeared from today's tables, they live on in our memories and family recipes. Got a special Grandma recipe that deserves a comeback? Share it in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more hidden gems from Grandma's recipe box. Next week, we're unlocking the secrets of her holiday